Okay, so we are going to go ahead and do undefined fractions and talk about what that is. And if you remember all the way back from probably when you were little, your math teacher probably said something about there's like a couple things in math that are illegal to do. And there is a certain operation with a certain number that is illegal in math. You are not allowed to divide by the number 0. Um, and when you do divide by the number 0, the fraction is actually called undefined. And so filling in these blanks, when the denominator, which is the bottom of a fraction, okay, equals 0, it is called undefined. Okay. I always remember under a 0 under the fraction bar makes the fraction undefined. So you can remember however you want to. Hopefully that will help you. And then it says how to find values which make a fraction undefined. It's also called not defined, is the same thing as undefined. Since a numerator in a fraction can be anything you want, we are going to completely ignore the numerator. In fact, when we go down to number 10, don't even care what is up here in this numerator, because the numerator doesn't matter when the question is asking about undefined. You're only concerned about what is under the fraction bar in order for you to get the answer correct when the question is asking about undefined. So we're ignoring the numerator, not even looking at it, and all we have to do is set the denominator equal to 0. Then, if the expression in the denominator is factorable, we are going to have to factor the expression. I guess there's the supposed to be in there, if necessary, and solve for the values of x. All right, so here we go. In number 10, the directions say for the following, find the value or values of x which make the fractions undefined. So in number 10, again, the question isn't about the numerator, it's about the denominator, or what's under the fraction bar, to figure out what's undefined. And in this one, we are going to go ahead and set the denominator equal to 0. And does everybody see how it's just an x? That means there's only going to be one answer. And when there's only one answer, you do not have to factor. All you have to do is move your terms around, maybe something like adding a 4x and putting it over here on this side. Okay, that's a 4, sorry. Okay. And you end up with 8 equals 4x. And when we go ahead and divide by 4, that would make x come out to equal 2. And that is the number that would make this fraction undefined. So again, doesn't really matter what's on top, okay? But on the bottom, if I were to take this 2 and plug it in, that would become 8 minus 4 times 2, which is 8 minus 8, which is 0. And so you would be dividing by 0. And when you divide by 0, that makes the fraction called undefined. Okay, so the value that makes the fraction undefined is the value of x equaling 2. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at the next one. Again, the question's about undefined, and that's why I'm ignoring the numerator. I don't even care what's up there. I'm going to go ahead and set the denominator equal to 0. And does everybody see the squared term? That means you're going to actually have 2 values of x, and you're not going to get those 2 values of x unless you go ahead and factor. And we can't factor unless we're equal to 0, and we are, so we are ready to factor. And the first type of factoring we should always check for is greatest common factor, and we do have something in common. It's an x, and we're going to go ahead and pull it out. Left over would be an x minus 4 equal to 0. We are done factoring. Neither one of these factors can go again, and so all we're going to do is we're going to take our one factor of x and put it equal to 0. We're going to draw a little bar, also known as like a t-chart, and we're going to take our second factor of x minus 4 and put it equal to 0. Nice thing is this side is finished. This side is not, though. We have to add 4. And when we're done, we end up with x equals 4. And so there is our one value of x that makes our fraction undefined, and here is our second value of x that makes our fraction undefined. Again, if you want to check it, you can. If I go back to the original and I go ahead and put in a 0 for my x squared minus 4 times 0, you're going to see that this gives you 0, and this gives you 0, and 0 minus 0 is 0. And so whatever's on top, it would make that 0 on the bottom, and that's why it's undefined. Okay. Same thing if I replace those zeros with a 4. This would be a 4, and this would be a 4. And 4 squared would be 16. Minus 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is also 16. And 16 minus 16 would again give you that 0 down there. And so both values turn that denominator expression into 0 when those answers are plugged in. And so that's how I know that these two answers will make my fraction undefined. Okay. All right, number 12. Again, don't care about the top when it's talking about undefined. Only care about the bottom. And on the bottom, I'm going to set it equal to 0. And I can already tell that I'm going to have two answers that make this fraction undefined. However, I'm not going to get those two answers unless I factor. And I cannot factor till I'm equal to 0. And so I'm ready to go. It is nothing in common, but it is an easy trinomial. So we're going to go ahead and do our x box. Our multiply will be negative 30, and our add will be negative 7. And my numbers are going to have to be, how about 10 and 3? Will that do it? If I make the 10 negative, that will add to negative 7, and if I multiply them, negative 30. So I am ready. Again, it is an easy trinomial, so we can go right to our factors of x minus 10 and x plus 3, and we are equal to 0. We're going to t-chart it. We're going to take this factor of x minus 10 and put it equal to 0. Take the factor of x plus 3, set it equal to 0, and then go ahead and solve. And on this side, x will equal 10. And on this side, x will equal negative 3. And there are our two answers that make this fraction undefined. And again, you can check them if you want to. Okay, we got 3 more to go. Again, you have to make sure you pay attention to the directions from yesterday and today. If they say simplify, we have to go and factor at the top and the bottom. If it says undefined, we ignore the top and set the bottom equal to 0. Okay. Again, this one's going to have two answers. I can tell because of the exponent of 2. And I'm not going to get them unless I factor. And first type of factoring I'm supposed to check for is greatest common factor. And there is one. And I'm going to go ahead and pull out that x. Left over with it, 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Okay. We're going to take our one factor of x and put it equal to 0. Draw our little t-chart bar, and we're going to take our second factor of 2x plus 3 and set that equal to 0. We're going to go ahead and subtract the 3. We get a 2x equal to a negative 3, and we're going to go ahead and divide by 2, and x comes out to equal negative 3 halves. And there are our two answers, 1 and 2. Okay, number 14. Again, the directions are talking about the fraction being undefined. So goodbye top, hello bottom. And this one's actually going to have 3 answers indicated by the exponent of 3. And so we will not get them unless we factor. And the first type of factoring we are to check for is greatest common factor. And there is a 3 and an x in common. So when we pull it out, we'll be left with an x squared minus 25. Okay. We are not done factoring because if you notice with your good math eyes, that is a D2PS. So we'll keep the 3x and we will factor the D2PS into x plus 5 and x minus 5. And we are equal to 0. Okay, we cannot factor anymore, and so we are ready to go ahead and take our first factor of 3x and set it equal to 0. We are going to take the x plus 5 and set it equal to 0. And we're going to take the x minus 5 and set it equal to 0. The very first factor, in order to solve for that x, we're going to need to divide by 3. And we end up with x equals a 0 divided by 3 turns the whole fraction into 0, whereas 0 on the bottom turns it into undefined. Okay. You can also ask your calculator if you weren't sure. Okay. In the middle here, we get x equals -5. And on the end here, we end up with x equals +5. And there are our 1, 2, 3 answers that we knew we were going to get because of that exponent of 3 up there. All right, one last one. Again, the question is talking about undefined, so goodbye to the top, hello to the bottom, and we are interested where that bottom comes out to equal 0. All right, so again, you can see that we're going to have 3 answers here. And we're not going to get them unless we factor. We can't factor unless we're equal to 0. And the first step of factoring we should check for is greatest common factor. And there is something in common, and I believe it's going to be a 3 and an x. So again, we'll pull out a 3x. Left over would be a 2x squared minus 5x minus 7. And we are equal to 0. All right, with our good math eyes, not only do we have a trinomial, we're going to give him a frowny face. Boo. He's a tough trinomial. He's a hard trinomial. He's going to take us a little bit longer to get to our answer. Okay, so what should we do to that 3x? We should probably just drop it down until we're done factoring this harder trinomial. Okay. Off to the side, we'll set up our x box. Our multiply is -14, and our add is -5. Our numbers are going to be 7 and 2. Except to get a -5, the 7 is going to have to be negative, which helps the multiply to -14. All right, remember that this is a sad trinomial. He's going to take longer to get to our answer. So the first term gets rewritten, which is 2x squared. I'm going to take the +2 next with an x attached to it, and then the -7x, and then the -7 equal to 0. Okay? Then we're going to go ahead and group. Out of the first group, we can go ahead and pull out 2x, left with x plus 1. Out of the second group, it's got to be a negative and a 7, and left over with x plus 1. Okay. Therefore, one of our factors right next to this 3x that we already brought down is x plus 1. And the guys on the outside, squish them together, 2x minus 7. And we are equal to 0. And so now we're going to go ahead and take each factor, now that we're done factoring, and put each factor equal to 0. So 3x is a factor. It gets set equal to 0. X plus 1 is a factor. It gets set equal to 0. And 2x minus 7 is a factor. It also gets set equal to 0. Going all the way back, to solve for this x, we have to divide by 3, and x will come out to be 0. If we go ahead and subtract 1, x comes out to equal -1, and add 7, we get 2x equals 7, and then divide by 2. And x comes out to equal, you can say 3.5, which is what 7/2 is, or you can leave it as 7/2, doesn't matter. They're equivalent. And there's our 3 answers that we knew we were going to have because of that 3 on the exponent in the problem. And that is how we do undefined fractions, and we find the values of x that make the fraction undefined. Okay, good job. I'll see you guys on the next day.